did.
Wasn't my intention.
Hey everybody, Martin LeBlanc with LBC Action today. Really happy to be here. Two incredible leaders that we're going to talk to today. Want to welcome Julie Garreau, the Executive Director of the Cheyenne River Youth Project, Erik Stegman, the Executive Director of Native Americans and Philanthropy. And today we're just going to discuss the work that the Cheyenne River Youth Project is doing to really empower and engage youth to make such a difference in their community and beyond. So welcome to both of you. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love both of you to give a quick introduction on who you are and your background, and then we'll get into some great discussion, hopefully, about the work that the Cheyenne River Youth Project is doing. So I'll start with you, Julie.
Thank you very much for inviting me. This is a great opportunity. So I'm Julie Garreau. I am a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. I was born and raised here on this reservation, and I am the founder and executive director of the Cheyenne River Youth Project. And it has been the best journey that anybody could ask for. I constantly wish that other people would find that particular purpose in life and just love doing the work. So that's me. I really I think that I'm just so blessed in so many ways by able to share this life with our kids and our families. Thank
you, Julie. Erik?
Yeah, it's really a pleasure to be part of this conversation. Always happy to be in conversation with Julie. I'm Erik, and I'm the CEO here at Native Americans and Philanthropy. We're a national advocacy coalition of tribal community leaders like Julie and funders and other stakeholders who are all working to increase philanthropic investments in our communities, but more importantly, to make sure those investments are in line with our values as Indigenous people. And my mother's family's from the Kettle First Nation, which are the Lakota people up in present-day Saskatchewan, and spent most of my career working in tribal law and policy, but I've always had a real passion for youth organizing, and most recently was running the Center for Native American Youth at the Aspen Institute, which is actually where I first got to know Julie and all the amazing work she's doing.
Well, thanks to both of you, and I just want to say, as a white ally, so honored, and thank you for having me in this space. I want to say that I spent in July, I went to Eagle Butte on the Cheyenne River reservation, and I got to experience Red Can firsthand. And I would just say, for me, it was an incredibly impactful moment. Julie, to see the work that you do, the community that you bring together, and just how you truly empower people to come together to make that difference and that change and that impact that frankly might be missing a little bit right now in society. You are truly a change agent, and real honor to have you here. So I just want to start out with, because both of you are amazing people, beyond the change agent, you're funny, you're friends, you bring love to each other. I would love just to hear how the two of you met and what created the Julie-Erik synergy that is a force of nature.
I think, Erik, the first time we met was when we brought some students back, or maybe I just came back for Champions for Change Week. Is that the very first time? I know. Yeah,
I was trying to remember too. I know it was definitely. I know we had some students involved in one of our trips, and it was either us out there or you out in DC. So it was one of those times.
Yeah, one of the two. Yeah, I feel like I've known Erik forever, like since I started this work. But I know that I went back to DC, and I can't remember if it was with kids or if it was just to make some connections. But Erik and I think we kind of gelled right off. And I think what I really appreciated is he got what we were trying to do here. I think he found it really interesting, considering we are located in the middle of South Dakota on the Cheyenne River Reservation, a place that has access to very few resources. And I think that he was intrigued by the idea that here we are 33 years later. But we also there was just a friendship that just naturally formed. And he probably has a bad sense of humor like I do.
Yes, that's definitely true, Julie. Yeah.
That's true.
I think one of the things that, when I think about how we met, some of my best friends, including you, Martin, have always been through the work on the ground. And I think the minute I got to see what Julie, worked with her community to help build out there, not only was it inspiring, but I just wanted to learn about all the different things that she's had to do over the years to make that happen, to sustain it, to keep innovating. And I think one of the things that just blows my mind every time I go out to see RYP is there's some new incredible venture happening, cool new stuff in the social venture gift shop, some kind of new art class going on. And it just felt like this hub of opportunity out in Eagle Butte. And I feel like I spent so much of my time having to build relationships with non-native people who are so focused on all of the challenges that we have in our communities, especially on the reservation. And when you bring people out there, there's this immediate sense of strength and cultural strength and possibility for our young people that doesn't even really need to be described. It's just the work Julie's doing. And so I think feeling that depth of investment in the day-to-day, I just knew I immediately loved this woman.
Well, thank you.
Well, Julie, you are definitely a change agent. And, you know, one of the things that I found interesting in getting to know you and meeting you is like, you know, you've been to Italy, you've been to New York, you're all over the place, but you always come back and your heart and your work is in Eagle Butte and at the Cheyenne River Reservation and with the Cheyenne River Youth Project. And I would just love for you to describe that work and a little bit of the passion that you have, the motivation you have to continue to build that work every day.
Sure, absolutely. You know, I think I can really just always bring it back home when I think about why I got engaged, why I continue to do the work. And that is because I think I come from a family who believe that taking care of your community, that public service is what we're supposed to do. That's our charge as Lakota people. So my father was a police officer and my mother was the director of the elderly nutrition program here for, I think, 33 or 35 years. So I grew up learning about service. And, you know, I always kind of make a joke that my mom I used to volunteer for the elderly program. And I don't know that I had a choice, but I grew up with elders, Lakota elders, who I remember when I went off to college, I went to say, you know, say, see you later to my mom. And I was loading up my car and all the elderly women came outside and they sent me off with like $20 and $20. And, you know, they just sent me off in there with all their love and all their good wishes. And so I think I grew up with that and understanding that you have to take care of community. And I think the difference is, and I've talked about this before, is that, you know, I don't see our community as like they're people that are clients, you know, because in the end, they are family and friends. And so we don't go home at the end of the day saying, oh, you know, I shut that door. You know, we go back to the same family and friends that we also are here to serve. So it's a really interesting, I think, different way to look at it. And I think I can't help but look at it that way. I think it's the way that I was raised. Taking care of family and community is absolutely the most important thing that we are given as Lakota people. It just so happens, I think that, you know, Cheyenne Garreau was my mother. She was a truly energetic, vibrant, amazing woman, a powerhouse. And I watched that growing up. And I just used to be, I remember walking into, it was like the Adult Services on Aging, some big conference, and I had to go pick her up. So I went into where they were hosting the conference and I'm looking all over for my mother, you know, this black-haired, dark-haired woman, and I couldn't see her. Well, she was the chairman of the entire organization and she was upstairs up at the front doing her thing. And I didn't know at that moment. She just did the work and she was very humble about it. Didn't think it was anything spectacular, but for a young woman, for a young girl, seeing that, I was truly overwhelmed. And so I think I got a lot of that energy. She was truly passionate. And, you know, I think the one lesson that I've learned over the years is that, you know, a lot of people will tell you no, and there will be lots of ways that you can't get things done. But I know for sure that because I believe in what we're doing and the reason behind it, and this is such, you know, heart-driven work, and my heart is involved in this. And so passion moves mountains, and it has for the Cheyenne River Youth Project and for me, because, you know, one door closes, another one opens. I absolutely believe that. And so people have said no to me. believe it or not. And I'm just like, okay, so what do I learn from that? And so I've had to just find a way, because a long time ago, when I first became engaged with the young people here on Cheyenne River, I just made a promise to them that I would not let them down, that if I made a promise, I would keep it no matter what that was. So whether it was building a youth center or teen center, or offering a midnight basketball, or maybe it was something special gift that they wanted, if I made that promise, I kept that promise. And so I think that that's an important piece. It kept me focused, because I know about broken promises. I know that we have an entire system, an entire land base that's built on broken promises, and we've just had enough of that. I don't want that for our young people. We need something different. So I think the foundation of why I've been able to stay, I know that I've read, they say founders leave after 5 years, they recommend you leave. And I suppose that might be true, but for me, why would I leave? These are the people that I come from, I can do something here. I can facilitate a change. I can offer our kids options and opportunities. So why would I go? Why would I leave this? This is my home. This is where my people are buried, and it's what I know. So it's been an incredible journey, and I honestly look at it as it's been an honor to be able to be a part of these kids' lives, because in the end, they have taught me so much about myself, about my community. And I'm the daughter of a cop. I thought I knew a lot. You learn a lot from being the daughter of a cop. And boy, there's a lot I learned so much. I learned so much more from these kids. So it's been a pretty fantastic journey. And it's been kind of like, there's been a lot of pain and hurt, but also the joy and the good times, and watching kids, just last night, we had one of our elders come in, and he taught the kids how to make a sweat lodge. And we use these foam boards and pipe cleaners, and this cloth to serve as the hide on top. And each of them made their own nipi, their own sweat lodge. And with that, he talked to them about it, and how the directions play a role in that. And I watched with just amazement, because he was so kind and he was so patient, and they were so attentive, and they listened. And kids cannot listen. Kids can do that, but last night, that always just excites me. I go home thinking, that was pretty cool. That was pretty great. So, it's a good life. But it's also, there's been a lot of hard times. There's also been a lot of loss and tragedy. And I think that's why I want to do it more. I want to remember, for the kids that I did lose, I want to keep doing the work. And so that keeps me, that takes away that idea as a founder of moving away, because I'm serving my family and my friends.
Well, I'll just say, Julie, I mean, the fact that you have found that North Star, your love of your community, your just want and love of learning from young people says so much about who you are and your values. And Erik, I would love to hear from your place, and love for you to maybe talk a little bit about Native Americans and philanthropy, because in knowing you and being a partner of LBC Action, you're highlighting to me of the work the Cheyenne River Youth Project is doing, of Julie as a leader, was so focused when I first met you, and to actually go to Eagle Butte and to go to Cheyenne River Youth Project and the reservation in Eagle Butte, and to see that in action was so impactful for me personally. I would love just to hear about the platform that you have and your journey, and the reason the work that Julie is doing is so important.
Yeah, I a lot of what we do at NAP, for me, as the leader here now, has really been based on the kind of work that I see Julie doing out there. Because I think a lot of times Julie's doing whatever she needs to build and grow and sustain and nurture CRYP, but I don't think Julie always understands the ways she's actually advocating for all our communities through the work. And I think what's so exciting about bringing our funders out to a place like the Red Can Graffiti Jam event, and seeing that work in action, is that it's so much more educational than I can do in a webinar or a conversation. I think it's an immersive experience for people who I think want to fund more work in Indian country, but don't understand our communities. They don't have relationships. And I've seen how hard Julie works to be a translator, which is, it's tough, it's hard work. And I think a lot of times funders don't understand how big of an ask it is to educate them about who we are. It takes a lot. We have to answer a lot of questions. And some of the questions are not good ones, and they can be, you know, offensive and, you know, all that stuff. But I think the way Julie's built that program, it's a program that's really there to build relationships and to grow the impact of CRYP for those young people beyond just Eagle Butte and the reservation. And I think that's what's so exciting. And one of the first real projects we worked on was to help, you know, support them building a new youth leadership project out at Cheyenne River that's still going today. And, you know, we bring those young people to Washington, D.C., and we give them some leadership development skills, and they get to go meet with their elected officials and, you know, learn about communications and break bread together at really fun restaurants. And, you know, these are all things that are done through relationship building. And I think that if we can do more of that work in philanthropy with more and more of the organizations out there that are like, you know, Julie's, I think we're making a real impact, and we're building, hopefully, funding relationships that will be there to sustain these organizations into the future.
If I could just add something, Martin,
Of
you know,
course.
after listening to Erik talk, I think it's true. I don't really understand and always recognize, you know, when he would point something out to me, I think, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that could be true. You know, I think I'm so focused and I'm so locally, you know, focused on what we're doing here in our community. I don't often always see the big pictures. So it's good to have a friend like Erik walk into my life and say, Julie, do you know this? I'm like, that's new. So like really, and actually, Martin, you've become this too now for me. But you know, when something really great happens to me, I want to call Erik, because you know, Erik is not only just going to cheer me on. You know, I think what Erik does for me is like he also points out something else that happened with that whatever that situation is, and that's pretty nice to have that reflection. So you know, now I have you and Erik on a chat or on a text group. So, you know, when something big happens, I can just send you both that same note. And, you know, that's nice to have out there in that much bigger world for me.
Well, thank you, Julie and Erik. I mean, it's interesting for me to think about that point, because, you know, in going out to Eagle Butte in the Cheyenne River Res in July of this year, to see the fact that like there were so many people from all over the country who were there to see the model that you have created with Red Can, but to also see your community, to see young people coming up to you and being like, hey, Julie, where's the water, right? I mean, they you know, so you are in this very interesting intersection of like the local impact and this potential, like, I would say national, even international model. So I'm curious, Julie, because I know that you're working with so many different partners. I know like National Recreation Foundation was honored to support some of your work, but I mean, how can partners, whether it's, you know, partners who are going to support Red Can through engagement, whether it's partners from a funding perspective who are going to come in, whether it's government from both like a tribal nation or like a state and a federal perspective, how can they best show up and support the work that you're doing right now with the Cheyenne River Youth Project?
So I think that there's a lot of different ways that, you know, people can kind of reach in and encourage and help us. It doesn't always have to be through a financial investment. You know, first of all, I think that in the very beginning, you know, I started this work not knowing much about nonprofit, the nonprofit world, about youth development, about any of those things. You know, I just kind of had to find my way. And what I realized though is that I was a terrible fundraiser. I just really had trouble asking for support. And then I realized the reason I did is because I didn't have a relationship, and I had to have a relationship with people. Now, it's really great. It's wonderful, and people can donate and give sight unseen, but I really want you to know us. I really want you to see the work that we're doing. I want you to get to know me. and trust me and know what the kind of work that we're doing here. So that was the way that I had to figure out how this made sense for me. And relationship building is the way that I would say that I have to continue to do this work. And, you know, one time there was a foundation in South Dakota, and I met with her in her office, and I really wanted them to come to to the Cheyenne River Youth Project. So I finally get her to visit. She goes on the tour. She gets done, and I said, well, how was that? And she said, Julie, she said, I really thought it was a one-room youth center. I'm like, oh, so I need to get better at telling this story. But, you know, for me, it mattered that she came, she took the tour, she got to see us, she met my staff. You know, I think this is the whole thing, and why you mentioned Red Can and all that we're doing is all built on relationships. And it's the only way that I can figure out to do the work that we're doing is to get to know them, you know, and share our story, because then it's real, you know. I just enjoy that. It's so much better for me. I think it's better and healthier for communities and investors for a lot of different reasons. But I also feel that, you know, other ways that, you know, we've had to build our own volunteer program. So we've had volunteers come from throughout the world to support us in doing our work. Now, COVID has obviously kind of put an end to that so we'll go back to rebuilding that as soon as it's safe to do so. We are bringing a few volunteers back, but, you know, we're hoping that if there are people out there who would love to come and spend 2 weeks to a year with us, helping us work with our kids, engaging, where we have a sharing of our stories and our culture, that's another great way that people can help. But, you know, I just think that, you know, if somebody reaches out to me and sends me an email and says, I just read about the Cheyenne River Youth Project, you know, I'm so impressed. You know, you guys are doing great work. That means so much to me. If it goes no further than that, I just think, okay, good, thank you. Because I think, you know, especially like when COVID started, you know, I was having some exchanges with Erik, and I remember telling him, and I don't know if you remember this, Erik, but I said I was really scared. I wasn't sure how we were going to make it through this, because, you know, with grants, there's, you know, deliverables, and you have to do certain things. And, you know, if we weren't doing them, we didn't have the money. And I was like, how am I going to keep my staff working? How will I, you know, and he really reassured me. And I took that. I took it to, I believed it. And you know what? Here we are. We're making it. We're finding our way. So for something so little as saying, Julie, there are too many people out there who are not going to let you fail, I was like, you're right. You're right. I needed to hear that. And then I was able to move forward. So, you know, when I think about the best way to engage Cheyenne River Youth Project is start by trying to build a relationship with us, understanding our community, knowing where we come from. You know, I feel like people who want to help us grow and do the work we need to do in the way we need to do it, that is the best relationship. You know, I shy away from folks or initiatives that say this is what you need to do. I just really do shy away from that. It just doesn't suit us, because in the end, the Cheyenne River Youth Project, we have a little phrase we say, for Cheyenne River, by Cheyenne River, because we built it for us. We need to address the challenges in our community. So, you know, we've already done that, and I've used this phrase before, but, you know, people telling us how to dress and how to pray and how to speak, or those days have to be gone, and they are going, and we just need to be able to say, no, this is how we are going to approach our work. And I feel like that model works. It works for us. And I think I can spend time with people and help them to understand why that's why we have to do the work the way we do it.
Well, thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. And you are truly a community builder. I mean, I think that's, you know, something that is so evident in the work that the Cheyenne River Youth Project does and the impact they have. Erik, I'm curious from your perspective in, you know, working across Indian country and trying to support programs, what makes the Cheyenne River Youth Project special in the sense that you can highlight to your funding networks and to your partners the impacts that the Cheyenne River Youth Project is making, and why an investment in the Cheyenne River Youth Project is such a good investment?
Yeah, I think Julie touched on most of it. I think a lot of what she was just highlighting was really about just the trust that's obviously there in the community. You know, it's tough to build up any kind of program or organization in any community. We have our own unique challenges in Indian country for a variety of reasons, but you know that program has roots because the community is connected deeply to it, and there's trust there, and it's become the place that Julie just described. And I think as I work with other organizations, you know, when Julie and I were talking around COVID, that's a lot of the work that we do here at NAP, is to really try to make sure we're deepening our relationships with our nonprofit partners like Julie, but to really make sure we're listening and we're actually hearing what's happening and what's going on. What are the struggles? Because you know, so much of what I saw happen with COVID, with the Cheyenne River Youth Project too, is that because it was such a trusted community resource and a place, that Julie and her team were able to do all sorts of things to support the community that were like beyond the mission. And I've seen that in so many other places in tribal communities too. And a lot of why I was, you know, calling funders and telling all of them what they needed to do to unrestrict their grants, to try to get more money out the door, to make more of their gifts multi-year commitments, was to tell them that, you know, if you really want to support us in crisis, but hopefully much further beyond the crisis moment, we need to look at organizations like Cheyenne River Youth Project, because they're the ones who can quickly pivot to whatever the community needs, to feed the community, to help the elders, to, you know, involve the young people in just being good members of their community and their tribe and their nation. And so I think that sort of dynamism that's part of the everyday work at Cheyenne River Youth Project is built on those relationships and that trust. And funders need to start investing in that a lot more than they need to be investing in some specific siloed area around, you know, some outcome they're looking for, because that's the hard work and that's the work that's impacting the community on a broader level.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Erik. I think that perspective is critical for funders to look at the need to invest in local community, to invest in relationships, which Julie has done, and invest in seeing how that local focus and those relationships make the impact that the Cheyenne River Youth Project has done, that Red Can does. So, you know, Julie, one of the things that, you know, I admire about you so much is just your energy. It's tough work, as John Lewis said. It's always, you know, good trouble, and you epitomize that good trouble. But when you're getting up in the morning and you're thinking about the next few years with the Cheyenne River Youth Project, what excites you? What gets your passion to the place where you get up and do the hard work that you do every day?
Retirement? No, I'm kidding.
We're all going to retire together, just for the audience to know. Erik, Julie, and Martin are all going to be retired in 10 years.
Probably never. But I think, you know, in fact, I was just talking to a woman yesterday. I said, you know, I get up thinking that, you know, what I need to be really focused on is making sure that the Cheyenne River Youth Project and all the work that it does goes far beyond me, that is here for another 30, 40, 50 years. And so putting those systems into place to ensure that, you know, is probably the most important thing that I think about these days, is making sure that, you know, that the people that are working here who want to continue to stay here, or the people who will join CRIP long after I am gone, that there is a place, that it is sturdy, it is strong, and it will continue to serve the young people of our community. I think that's probably one of the biggest focuses, you know, and that's a little harder because you have to think about, you know, where are you going to get the resources to make sure, you know, where it's not a year by year sort of situation, you know, and where can you find those resources that are very low touch, and they invest in just in just the organization and what we're doing. So, you know, and I think the other piece is that, you know, I've been convinced enough, mostly by Erik, about how great, you know, of a story we have, and there is something that should be shared there. So if there's that opportunity for me to share what we've been able to do here, then I would love to do that, because I think we have been the recipients of so many generous people, whether it's, the giving of funding or the giving of their time, or maybe it's sending toys during the holidays. I really feel like we've been gifted with a lot. So if I can give back in any manner, I would like to do that, because that's how it should work, right? That's how we should be continuing to take care. And if we can take care and help other communities. In fact, later today, I think I have somebody coming up from another reservation. They want to start a youth project. So I'm like, absolutely, come down, let's spend some time together. And so if we can share, I think that's what's really I would like to do. And that's really what I think about.
Well, thank you, Julie. And as we kind of, I guess, go into the quote home stretch here, Erik, I'm curious from your perspective. It's a moment in time, right? It's with Secretary Deb Haaland leading such great travel work at the Department of Interior, with the Travel Nation Summit that just happened 2 days ago, the last 2 days here in Washington, D.C., which is amazing. But also, again, this work on the ground, this work that Julie's doing to impact her community. If how could you just kind of describe a kind of a final thought of that need for all of us to come together to invest in projects and people like Julie to make sure that we can make the change that I think there's an energy right now that has not potentially been there before in this moment in time?
Yeah, it is exciting. I think it's a sort of a double-sided coin. For any of us who worked in and around philanthropy, we've seen these moments come and go before. And right now, there's a lot more investment going into equity-related causes for communities of color across the country, and much more interest in actual action and investing in Indigenous communities that I've seen anyway. But now it's the tough work, which is holding the philanthropic sector accountable to sustaining that investment and that change. And I keep coming back to this relationship piece that Julie's been focused on too. The only way that we can really help sustain that growing investment and to make sure that funders are being accountable to our communities of what they're actually trying to contribute to is through relationships. And I think one of the things a lot of funders struggle with because of the difference between them, some of them are really big foundations, and you've got one program officer that's having to manage relationships with a lot of different grantee partners, and then others are just individual donors. Some are coming from family foundations. Julie's got a whole spread of relationships across all those kinds of funders. But I realize the challenges with that. And that's why I think partnerships like ours really matter in the long run, because I think, I spend a lot of my time, here in Washington, D.C. and in some of the big cities talking to funders, but I spend as much time as possible out on the ground, being in community, listening, and making sure that I'm being a respectful and hopefully helpful partner at the national level, because, organizations like Cheyenne River Youth Project need to be focused like a laser on their community and what they're doing. But I think that those kinds of partnerships between organizations like ours and Julie is working in a good way to really communicate how this work should be done and how you should be investing in it, can kind of help keep the rest of the sector more accountable and hopefully learn from the kinds of work that we do together in their other areas of investment.
Well, thank you, Erik. And I so appreciate the word partnership. I mean, LBC Action is established around the power of those partnerships, the power of bringing people together who care, who work together to make that impact. And as we wrap up, Julie, I would just, you talked about what gets you up in the morning, which, is so inspiring and empowering, I think, for all of us. But, if you were highlighting to a decision maker, a partner, a funder on how important this moment in time is at the Cheyenne River Youth Project in Eagle Butte, at the Cheyenne River Reservation, why is this a moment in time where we need to all come together to make that impact?
I think about, I feel like the Cheyenne River Youth Project has been engaged in reconciliation work, like on very much a global level since our very beginning, because we have brought so many different people from around the world and we've shared our story, they've shared theirs. I feel like it's really more important than ever right now that reconciliation, kind of peacemaking, those sorts of things are really a part of all of our conversations all the time. But I also feel like it's also the time for truth. It's truth leads to reconciliation. So I was on a call yesterday and I was a news outlet, and before, because I was invited, they asked me kind of like what I would talk about. And we were talking about the idea behind Thanksgiving and and so I said, well, it's a lie. And they're like, well, you plan to call it a lie? And I said, well, it's not true. So I mean, I could say it's untrue, but in the end, it's a lie. So, I said, there's, I think this moment in time is about truth. And then with that comes reconciliation. But it's time to trust that we know what we're doing, that we know exactly what our communities need. So investing in a community and allowing us to do the work that we know needs to be done is probably the most critical piece of this whole puzzle right now, is that I'm from here. I was born and raised here. I believe in what we're doing here. And we also have a very nice track record to show it. We've built it year by year by year, and here we are 33 years later. So we have a lot to share. We still have a lot to learn, which is why I have great friends like you guys who I can call and say, I have no idea what this means. Can you just help me out? So I think it's right now the time for when I think about CRYP is to continue that relationship building, but building good, honest, sincere relationships is what we need to continue to do here. But we want to be part of that peacemaking, that reconciliation, because I think we've always been that. And so telling our story, helping the communities understand what they can do for themselves, how they can remain sovereign and do the work that benefits their communities. Those are all messages that I think that we need to send right now. But, the other thing I think piece is that during COVID, with the help of like people like Erik, helping philanthropy understand that, you can have very low touch sorts of, funding for these organizations. And, you can change, philanthropy can change. And you can open it up, and it doesn't have to be this oppressive way of doing business with entities. And so I think those are all things I think about for this time that we're in, that, I know that COVID has not been good and has not been kind, and we all want it to come to an end. But I also think that we saw some changes. I certainly saw changes in our organization that will stay, that will stick. And we saw changes in philanthropy that I hope that people will begin to see as like, oh, that wasn't so bad, was it? We can trust these organizations to do the work that they need to do. But I think uplifting Native nations is the thing we all have to be doing right now. We have to become and understand what First Nations has done for this country. So there's a lot of things right now I think that are really relevant to what's happening in our country. And I think the one thing is, trusting what we can do and what we are doing.
I appreciate that, Julie. And as we close, I want to say from the LBC Action perspective, a few things. I think number one, the learning that we are gaining from you, from Erik, and the work that the Cheyenne River Youth Project is doing in Native Americans and philanthropy is incredible. And I think that right now is a moment in time to invest, partner, and build that relationship with someone like yourself, Julie, and the Cheyenne River Youth Project. I'd also add that in working across, multiple fields, whether it's in, underserved communities, marginalized communities, as the Biden administration describes it, and Native communities, the model of the Cheyenne River Youth Project can be across multiple fields. And it is something that I think is a potential model for other passionate, smart, energetic community builders to aspire to. And I just want to say as we wrap, my gratefulness, my gratitude, my thank you for the work, Julie, that you do, and Erik for the work that you do, because I know that both of you get up every day. It is, in the words of John Lewis that said earlier, it is causing good trouble and it is tough work. And, Julie, I'm sure there are many mornings you just want to sit there in bed, the 2 corgis, and not get out of bed, but you get up every day and you make that impact. And I will just say, from my perspective as a partner of yours and a friend, thank you. It means so much. So I hope all of you who are watching this can learn. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you with Julie and Erik so we can make sure that the work that the Cheyenne River Youth Project is doing can grow and scale and to make even bigger impacts in our future. I just want to thank all of you today for the great work that you're doing. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you very much for all those kind words.
Thanks, Martin.